Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here at my next YouTube video, and this is going to be my next Star Wars movie review. And yes, this is the sixth video in this series, so of course it is time for Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Now, obviously, the saga comes to an end, at least until 2015, when Episode 7, 8, and 9, well, what are they calling it? Sequel trilogy comes out. So 7 is going to be out in 2015, and that's cool. But at this moment, this is the last in the series, kind of, even though it was the third one to come out. But anyway, let's get into this Return of the Jedi. Overall, as I'll say with all of these Star Wars films, they are very good movies, and they are good, in my opinion, 6 very good movies, but I think the whole point of this series was to kind of rate them in the order that I would put them in. And for me, this one comes in 5th place. So, I've said before, my order is 3, 1, 5, 4, 6, 2. So, this one is just ahead of Attack of the Clones for me, but it's still pretty good movie. So, let's get into some specifics on this movie. I'll actually get into my biggest, I suppose, complaint about this movie, and it's similar to what I said about Empire Strikes Back, in that I think overall what kind of one of my disappointments with the original trilogy would be the fact that they set up this whole thing of like Luke, Han, and Leia basically being this group, but when you look at those 3 movies as a whole, Luke is actually on his own for most of the films, and on his own trying to save his friends. But because he's actually tried to save his friends for so much of the movie, and he's on his own for so much of the movie, it's kind of hard to get around the fact that he is actually really good friends with these guys. Now, I think it works for the most part, but definitely rewatching them for this review and kind of just really kind of analysing things, it's something I really noticed, in that in this movie, Empire Strikes Back probably did it like the worst, though it wasn't that bad, where Luke was on his own for a lot of that movie and he was barely ever with them, just the very start and the very beginning pretty much. In this one, it's a bit better. You know, he's on his own for the start, comes in, they're together for a bit, and then he's on his own again. And I think it's just the fact that the character development between, say, Han and Luke and Leia kind of goes away a bit at times. Now, you do get some very nice moments between the group, but they're kind of few and far between, and it's definitely something that I hope 7, 8, and 9 reference, at least in some way, to show where they've come from here. But it's definitely one that kind of stuck out to me in this rewatch, that this group, that's the big 3 characters in the original trilogy, aren't actually together for like that much. This is something I noticed. But let's get into some more positive things about this movie. I really do enjoy the fact that Luke is basically a master Jedi in this. The start of the movie, basically, you kind of, it's a bit into the movie, I suppose, but when he comes in to try and like save his friends and he just chokes out the Gamorrean guards, walks in, it's clear to see that this guy has been training for this a while, and he's kind of nearly the kind of master Jedi, and that really worked for me as a kind of development throughout the series. The kind of Episode 4 has no idea what's going on, trains a little bit and is okay. Episode 5 trained a bit and is getting better, but not quite there, and then here he is kind of at his kind of best in a way. So that was cool. The Jabba the Hutt kind of coming into play a bit more. Leia and Lando saving Han, really kind of cool moments there. Further going into the relationship of Leia and Han, which was nice to see. And then the whole Rancor fight thing was an interesting moment, and that it really fit the kind of a theme of Jabba's palace, and that he would have a trapdoor with kind of these beasts fighting for entertainment. That was cool. Then you pretty much they kind of escape from there, and then you get into the whole plan about the Forest Moon of Endor and all that. And this is kind of the moments where you get to see them all together as a group when they're planning this mission down to the kind of surface to take out the shield and, second Death Star, that sort of thing. And that works for me. And then throughout the movie, they're definitely setting up the um, father and son meeting, Darth Vader and Luke meeting, and that kind of worked in that they were sensing each other for most of the movie, and then especially with the Emperor's aim in the background of really replacing Darth Vader with Luke, which plays into what happens at the end, which is it's a very nice little theme to have in the background. That as much as like Darth Vader is the Emperor's apprentice, he really just wants to replace this kind of nearly like half robot guy with Luke, who he sees as kind of becoming more powerful, and it kind of just shows that side of the Sith, and that he doesn't care about Darth Vader really. When they get to Endor, you have the speeder bike chase, which is really nicely done. I think it's a really good action scene to have in the middle of the movie. That sets up a lot of stuff, splits people up. But then we get introduced pretty much by way of Leia to the Ewoks. And here's a point I really want to make. So many Star Wars fans criticize Jar Jar Binks and the Gungans for being like the worst creatures in Star Wars. And then they're pretty much defending the Ewoks. Now, I don't really mind either of them. I don't mind the Ewoks, I don't mind the Gungans. But I would definitely say the Gungans are a better species in Avatar than Avatar. There's my Avatar fan coming out again, but better species in Star Wars than the Ewoks, because you're comparing this race that had a actual army. They had some technology. It wasn't as advanced. Basically, in my opinion, the Gungans are the Ewoks done better. Because I get what they were going for in this movie with the Ewoks, the kind of not very technologically advanced native species rebelling against the Empire with the help of some heroes and getting a surprise victory. I get that, but I think they did a bit better in The Phantom Menace with the Gungans, because there's a line between making the native population kind of get a win and it being a surprise, and then it just making the enemies look terrible. And that's what I think this movie does a little bit, in that the Ewoks are using like sticks, stones, and rope, and it just makes the stormtroopers look like idiots. Now, to be fair, they're pretty much idiots the whole movie, and they're never really much of a threat. I think Leia getting shot in this movie is like one of the only times they actually hit anyone. But yeah, at least with the Gungans, they kind of made it clear that their technology's it's fairly advanced, but it's not as kind of straightforward, I suppose, as the droids. And they put up a good fight. They did what they needed to do, but were kind of fought back eventually. So that's just something I kind of wanted to point out, that if you criticize the Gungans and defend the Ewoks, I think there's something a bit wrong there. But moving on there, Luke then kind of gets himself captured on purpose and meets with his father, and you have some really nice moments here where Darth Vader inspects Luke's lightsaber, and you just have that moment where Luke is like, I know there's some good left in you, and you can kind of see where it's going from here as he's brought to the Death Star. And then you get the moments where basically the Emperor and Darth Vader attempt to lure Luke to the dark side, and it's not working at all, and you see the lightsaber fight is good, and Luke putting up a better fight, and overall it's just it really works. This is Luke's temptation, like kind of contrast to Anakin's temptation in, say, Revenge of the Sith. And the only thing that really gets to Luke is the mention of his sister, Leia, which you just found out before. And this kind of is what gets out his emotional side in this fight, and kind of gets him fighting Darth Vader. And the Emperor's aim is basically to make Luke use his anger to kill Darth Vader, which will start his descent to the dark side. And that's a really nice idea, I suppose, at the end of this movie. And kind of throughout this, Luke eventually kind of stops and doesn't go through with killing Darth Vader, and then the Emperor attacks. Kind of Luke realizing that he's not really going to turn to the dark side, and um, Darth Vader begins to kind of see the Emperor kind of as the villain that he truly is. Begins to feel for his son and just that sort of thing. And it, I really did like the end of this, kind of when Darth Vader just kind of stands up, picks up the Emperor, who's like still spraying lightning into Luke, and throws him down into the kind of reactor. Because it kind of did show this was him, in a way, redeeming himself, though what he's done kind of almost can't be redeemed. So it was kind of like this sacrificing himself to end the Emperor and save his son, and in the process making the prophecy true in that Anakin did, in a way, restore balance to the Force. It's just he became a Sith. He became a Jedi, then a Sith, and then redeemed himself to do it. So that I like that idea that that's the way the prophecy actually went. It wasn't the way the Sith thought it would be. It wasn't the way the Jedi thought it would be. It went this way. In terms of other parts in the movie, you then have like Lando basically leading the attack on the second Death Star, and I suppose that's in a way a bit why I maybe rate this lower than 4 and 5 in terms of the original trilogy movies, and that I feel the space battle was nowhere near as good as the space battle in A New Hope, and the lightsaber fight between Luke and Darth Vader here wasn't as good as the one in Episode 5. So it kind of didn't quite have the drama that should have been the kind of finale of the original trilogy, that because the other movies did various aspects better. Yes, the Palpatine Darth Vader one was very kind of finale-esque, and it worked, and that's really what makes this a good movie, I think. But it just kind of didn't quite have the action moments as good as the other movies, so that's probably one of my bigger complaints about this. But getting into other moments, the Luke Leia kind of brother-sister reveal, kind of like came out of nowhere. You got a hint that there was something, but it was only the Yoda on his deathbed telling Luke that there's another, that kind of got this into Luke's mind, and it worked, and this then led to the kind of Leia Han kind of I suppose becoming a couple moment as well, and they're kind of holding the shield generator room, and as the kind of bomb's about to go off, Leia gets shot, Han defends her. Really nice moment as like the Ewoks attack, and again it just comes back, I think, to what I said at the start of this, is that one of the big things missing from this is I think a lot of the communication between Leia and Han and Luke, in that he's kind of doing everything he can to like save them. Like the Emperor's throughout most of these movies, threatening to kill his friends. Like that's why he goes out in Episode 5, that sort of thing. But he doesn't really have many moments where you really get to see it. So it's something I'd like to see more in maybe the sequel trilogy. But overall, really good stuff throughout the movie. Lando getting a slightly, I suppose, bigger role, more heroic role here was good. Seeing him like be this kind of general in the Rebel army, that was a cool moment. I suppose him getting the Millennium Falcon back to while Han went down to the planet was a interesting bit of character stuff, in that it showed Han's development as he basically became the guy that helped his friends, as opposed to the guy who just went off with his ship on his own. So it was a nice bit of character development for Han. But I suppose I'm pretty much coming to the end of the movie here. Just I suppose a bit on the Yoda death scene. That was a bit emotional, though in many ways kind of came out of nowhere a bit, and that was kind of like the only Yoda moment. He just went there and Yoda was dying. So it just felt a little bit kind of like we have to insert this in here, but overall, it worked. Bard Style fight was good. Boba Fett getting thrown into the Sarlacc pit was pretty cool. But there you go. A few more complaints than maybe some of the other original trilogy movies. So I think I probably just about warranted putting it as like 5th place. But yep, that's been the end of this review and the end of this movie series of Star Wars reviews. I think I'm going to do probably 2 more Star Wars videos. The next one is probably going to be me overviewing basically the whole Clone Wars series, which is the movie and then the 5 seasons of the show. Though actually wait, the 6th season is still kind of coming out online, so I think I'll wait to do that. So the next one I'll probably do is I want to review the book Star Wars Darth Plagueis. So that's what I'll probably do next week. Well, that's my favourite EU novel, and I'm going to make that a kind of special one next week. So keep an eye out for that, but thank you for watching this review, and bye.